cancer and your name in the same sentence is something you never want to hear.
As a military guy, I had always been pretty independent and pretty self-reliant, and I could handle most things myself, but all of a sudden now with this cancer diagnosis, I couldn't handle anything.
I looked at the heading and it said cancer, and then I looked at the life expectancy and it said 3 years, and I thought, I'm 17, I might not live to be 20.
Here's a dream that I had at 8 years of age. I saw it become a reality. This has been all about my life. I mean, everything I've ever done has been wrapped around baseball. Now somebody's saying, you'll never play again.
He sat Charlie down and said, I don't know how to tell you this, but you have something called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease. And the doctor told Charlie he had a year or two at most to live.
The pathway is broken and the signs are unclear, and I don't know the reason why you brought me here, but just because you love me the way that you do, I'm gonna walk through the valley if you want me to.
What is hope? A burning ember that can be snuffed out by a single whisper of fear? Or is hope the spark of life that, when properly caressed, is ignited into an eternal flame? Is hope an unturned stone? A fallen leaf? An unfound door? Or is it a little bird buoyed by love that mounts upon wings of eagles?
'Cause I'm not who I was when I took my first step, and I'm clinging to the promise you're not through with me yet. So if all of these trials bring me closer to you, then I will go through the fire if you want me to.
Hope is real. You can touch it, taste it, feel it. You can build your life upon its firm foundation. Hope is as close as your heart. Listen. Listen to the stories of the power of life over death. The stories of hope. This is your story. The first is the story of a giant, Dave Dravecky, the famous pitcher for the San Francisco Giants, a 21st round draft pick who fought his way up the ranks to national stardom.
Growing up, I had two heroes, Sandy Koufax and Vida Blue. They were left-handed pitchers. All I cared about as a little kid was I wanted to throw a baseball like they did.
I would have to say he was a tremendous competitor. He had this tremendous desire to win.
Some people are born with just gobs of talent, but they only use about this much. And with David had this much, and Dave used it to the full extent.
At the zenith of his amazing Major League odyssey, Dave's doctors noticed a strange lump forming.
Finally, they said, okay, let's just get it checked. And so we went to the doctor and had an MRI.
We were in the waiting room waiting for the doctors to come back and talk to us. And outside of the room, we heard the doctors fooling around with the film, slapping it up on the thing, and then all of a sudden, the doctor said, oh my goodness, look at that tumor.
It was cancer in his left arm, his pitching arm.
And so the doctors came in and told him they believed he had a fibroid tumor at the base of his deltoid muscle. They would have to remove it, along with 50% of his deltoid muscle.
The doctors said Dave Draveki would never pitch again. But 10 months after the removal of cancer from his arm...
You don't ever use the word finish when you talk about Dave Draveki, because he never finished.
He stood on the mound in Candlestick Park on August 10th, 1989, and he stood there in amazement.
The magnitude of that night is unreal. It was like a more more like a World Series game, the 7th game of the World Series. And he got a stand ovation when he walked down by bullpen. When he first started warming up, he got a stand ovation when he finished. He got a stand ovation when he went to the mound. It was just incredible to sit there. I didn't really manage that game. I just sat there in awe.
Dave returned to the mound to pitch 8 electrifying innings for the Giants, leading them to victory. But then, 5 days later, on the mound against Montreal, Dave Draveki threw the pitch heard round the world.
The 6th inning, and I'm back out on the mound, and I rear back to throw a fastball to Tim Raines, who's at the plate. And all of a sudden, as I let go of that pitch, my left arm snaps in half.
Here's the pitch, and Dravecky falls over.
This incredible explosion in my left ear from releasing that fastball and my arm snapping in half. And I went falling to the ground, almost went in shock. There was something going on in my life that was a whole lot bigger than baseball. So much bigger than baseball.
Dravecky stumbled on the mound. He threw a wild pitch. Hank, he's holding his shoulder.
He was checked by the doctors, and they told him the tumor had returned.
His left arm shattered, along with his dreams of a major league comeback. The man with the miracle arm must now face the future as an amputee.
Baseball was just a stepping stone to something much greater.
Elizabeth is 12 and very much a little girl, but starting to become a young woman. And she is wonderful, and she's very sociable and gregarious and loves to be with people and loves ballet, loves art. Matthew is all boy. He's 8 going on 9 and loves Star Wars and Legos and boy things. They're great kids.
As an ER nurse in an intensive care unit of a South Dakota hospital, Cindy Pickett learned to deal with medical emergencies.
Maybe I can't speak for all of them, but I think nurses tend to have you have to build up a wall to protect your own emotions, because my husband always said I brought so much home anyway that I couldn't sleep at night if I didn't.
But nothing could prepare her for her own doctor's pronouncement that she had a rare form of cancer that would leave her with a 5% chance of living.
Cancer and your name in the same sentence is something you never want to hear. And as a healthcare worker, I did do a lot of research on my own. And the medical literature for healthcare professionals is very bleak. It's the bottom line, this is the statistics, this is what you can expect, and there is no hope in the literature. That was when I would go to my worst spots. The worst times was when I would fixate on reading that literature and fixate on, I've only got 5% chance to live. A friend had told me to journal, and so I would try and journal, and I would just write what was on my heart. And it was always, I want to see Elizabeth and Matthew through school. I want to see them married. I want to be there to give them my sage advice that nobody else can give them. I didn't want to think about Don remarrying and another woman raising my children.
Charlie Wedemeyer, himself a star quarterback from the islands of Hawaii to Michigan State, became one of the most winning coaches in the history of high school football.
Coach Wiedemeyer, there's just something about him. There's a feeling that you get when you're around him. And he was my first real quarterback coach, and he just, seeing him out there every day and putting all the time and effort into it kind of really taught me a lot about hard work.
Inspiring his undefeatable Wildcats from the sidelines of Los Gatos High, Charlie is living in a constant battle of life and death with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
It's kind of a humbling feeling. It's just seeing him out there every day is really an inspiration, and it's kind of seeing him work hard and
Much better?
It just helps out a lot.
Charlie's saying I was writing on the chalkboard in my math class, and I struggled to hold on to the chalk. It would fall out of my hand. He had had so many injuries, playing ball for so many years, and he just assumed it was, you know, a natural part of those old injuries. And the doctor told Charlie, you have Lou Gehrig's disease. The illness began to take its toll. It traveled up his right arm, and then his left arm began to have trouble. And pretty soon, Charlie was not able to walk by himself anymore. Our children had to help me walk him wherever we went.
He can he talk by different hand signals or lip signals.
When he runs the ball, right, behind, no. Why slam one step, why kick out, right behind.
I like that one.
It was just a real gift to be able to know the guy and even be taught the quarterback position by him.
It's just a never give up attitude. But it's not just never give up, but it's also having fun with everything we do. And, you know, I'm sure you've seen how much fun we have with the Wiedemeyer family.
1, 2, 3, yes! 1, 2, 3, yes!
You know, he's struggling. He might be in pain that day for whatever reason it is, but he never, ever puts a bad look on his face. He's always smiling. You know, not only do we all go to church together and coach together, and all work together too, but we cook together.
He loves cooking. He's just a great cook.
That's actually one of my favorite things I like to do with him. Teaches me a lot of good recipes.
You know how Hawaiians love to eat.
Meet Colonel Wayne E. DeRue, retired. Once an Air Force Vice Wing commander over the American missile base in Great Falls, Montana, Colonel DeRue has spent his life defending his country. Today, his own defenses are all but depleted, as his own private war with a rare form of abdominal cancer requires true courage under fire.
The doctor told us I had a malignant tumor, and it was rubbing against the femoral nerve in my leg, and that's why I had that numb spot. The tumor's pathology turned out to be a very aggressive, fast-growing tumor, so they felt it needed to get out right away. Unfortunately, we didn't get all the tumor, and it grew right back in the same spot. When you're diagnosed with cancer and you have an operation and you think maybe you got it all, and then less than 6 months later, you find out it's right back in the same place again. That's a pretty devastating blow to have to handle. And so you put your hand and your head on each other's shoulder a lot and cry. My condition at this point is that there are no surgical options left for me. There's no radiation options left for me. The old tumor, the original tumor, is still in the right side of my abdomen. It returned again and has grown to the point that they cannot take it out. I just started 2 days ago using chemotherapy that was designed for pancreatic cancer. If that doesn't work, there are no other options right now that they have for me. And probably whenever the old tumor decides to grow enough to seriously impair the function of my other organs, then I probably am now almost on the downhill side of cancer. So it's kind of a difficult thing to handle, and we'll just have to see how this new chemo works.
Susan Strong is a high school English teacher living in Colorado Springs. At 17, she was diagnosed as having Hodgkin's disease. The innocent teenaged girl came suddenly face to face with her own mortality and became a woman in an uphill battle with cancer.
I remember the day we got there, the clinic had just this long hallway with chairs along the walls. And I was sitting there alone waiting for my parents while they were doing other things, and I saw these little bald kids. And I kept thinking of the movie Brian's Song, I think was the name of it. And the little boy that didn't make it, and it was just all kind of swirling around me of, gosh, I have cancer and nobody's really telling me about it, and it was scary. And should we say if it's a cardinal? I had first a biopsy, a thoracic biopsy, which is the scar here. Then I had a staging laparotomy and splenectomy. Then I had a sandwich program of chemotherapy with 3 months of chemotherapy and then radiation treatment in the middle, and then 3 more months of chemotherapy after that. So I got to lose my hair twice.
It may not be the way I would have chosen when you lead me through a world that's not my home. But you never said it would be easy. You only said I never go alone.
Why do bad things happen to good people? What is the reason for suffering? Is there a purpose for pain? Are we just victims of circumstance? Or is there a God? And if God is real, does he care about us individually in our deepest despair? The purpose of this journey is to provide you with the hope you will need to overcome fear and pain and loneliness and doubt and despair. There are keys to unlocking that hope. Keys you will need for the journey ahead. The first key is simple. You are not alone.
As a military guy, I had always been pretty independent and pretty self-reliant, and I could handle most things myself, but all of a sudden now with this cancer diagnosis, I couldn't handle anything. And I didn't know where to go and what to do and how to act when I was angry and when I was sad.
I looked in the mirror, and when I saw what I saw, it shocked the living daylights out of me.
When the cancer came, it kind of rocked my world a little bit, because I'd been a kid trying to be really good, and I heard the scripture, as you reap, or as you sow, so shall you reap. And I'd been so good that how could this happen?
I woke up the next morning, opened the curtains and said, wait a minute, how can it be a beautiful morning? How can the sun be shining and, I was hearing the birds? This is not right. My life has just been shattered. How can things be normal outside?
Here I am standing in front of that mirror, and I am shocked at what I see, as though I had heard nothing prior to this and had no preparation. And I'm realizing, oh my gosh, this is drastic.
It was a very bizarre sense of, I guess, disbelief.
I mean, this was my life. This was my career. This was everything that I loved.
That is an enormous amount of pain that you carry daily. I mean, I would walk through the house and see the kids, and I would just start to cry, because I would think, I just can't be separated from them ever.
So I would try to go days without sinning and keep track. So I very much, I think, was trying to earn God's love.
I saw the importance of telling other cancer victims that they're not alone. There's people all over that feel the same way they do. People that are self-reliant and independent, they get cancer too.
You are not alone. Many have gone before you and are with you now on your journey of hope. It is important to surround yourself with the ones you love, to have a support system of people to just be with you. This is the second key, to know that you are loved.
There are a lot of times when you're sitting there and you've got all these things racing through your head, and you don't want an answer. You just want somebody to listen. And I can't tell you how much I gravitated towards people who were good listeners.
Sometimes it was very helpful just to have people call me up. Nothing in particular to talk about, just to chat. You kind of begin to rely on that person calling.
I remember just stamping out of the kitchen and coming through in the family room and must have been saying to myself, why won't anybody listen to me? And my little 8-year-old came and put his arm around me and said, Mommy, I'll always listen to you. And that is just so precious.
I can't tell you how hard it is when you're in that place and you're alone, and all of a sudden your brain starts working and you start thinking about all these things, and you drum up some of the weirdest schemes as to how your life is going to play out. And for somebody to be able to sit in that room when you feel like you need to be able to expose those things, for someone to sit there and listen and not to give you an answer or not to try and fix how you feel, but just to accept what you have to say, lay it out on the table and leave it there. There is so much comfort in that.
You know, a lot of people say, well, gee, if you need anything, call me. And then they leave. You know, that's kind of empty. You know, where if they had just stuck around for a while and sat on the couch and just chatted with us for a while, just being there can mean or be words of encouragement.
I told Lucy they would be better off if I just died. I will never forget her response. I remember sitting there stunned and just in my head I said, God, please give me words. I don't know what to say. I mean, how do you encourage someone when they've lost hope? And I turned to Charlie and said, you know, we'd much rather have you like this than not at all.
I can see when you're given no hope and you're given bleak odds and you're just told you're going to die. I can see why you would think, just end it all now. It's just too painful. But I think what would have been more painful would have been the thought that I would have left these two precious children that would be traumatized for the rest of their lives, so there wouldn't be any gain in it. It would be hurting the ones that are the most precious to me, and I would never hurt them.
Montana's a beautiful place where we grew up. Minot, North Dakota, it can be a beautiful place. In the middle of winter when the sun rises and there's frost on all the trees and they all turn pink and purple, and that's a special kind of beauty as well. So to me, the most beautiful place on earth is wherever I'm with my family.
It is not an easy journey. It is a very humbling experience, because you find out a lot about yourself that you don't like. And yet, I think the one thing that has been so amazing as I've gone through all the stuff over the years that I've had to deal with is that I've come face to face with a God who loves me and accepts me, warts and all, because there were people who came into my life and loved me and accepted me, warts and all.
So when the whole world turns against me and I'm all by myself and I can't hear you answer my cries for help, I'll remember the suffering your love put you through, and I will go through the valley if you want me to.
The reality of his own suffering did not come as a surprise to Jesus. It is why he came. Nevertheless, the night before his crucifixion, he sweated drops of blood. In anguish, he cried out to God, "O Father, If it be possible, take this cup away from me. Only a suffering God, one who has walked in your shoes, felt what you have felt, and who has entered into your world, can offer true hope. Sometimes, when it seems there is no hope, God shows up. The third and most important key is faith. You are not alone. You are loved, and God is with you.
I need to go to Jesus Christ and accept Him as my Savior, and that's the foundation of what I'm going to have to do here in order to get through all this.
My picture of God is totally different now. I had God so far away and up there, way up there in heaven.
That was a new opening for me, I think, of knowing who God was and not having this idea that God was my errand boy, that God was supposed to do what I said, and if He didn't, He must not be God. And actually, over the years, I've learned He's a lot bigger than that. How devastating it would be to have a God that could only do what you tell Him to do and couldn't think beyond that.
I can't tell you how important my relationship with Jesus Christ has been in facing cancer, because the most important aspect of understanding anyone's journey through pain and suffering is knowing that there is someone that they can associate with in that pain and suffering.
One particular night we had a new nurse come in, and she saw how dismal the situation was. Charlie was barely alive, very shallow breathing. None of us were sure he'd try and make it through the night. So she asked if she could pray for Charlie. Charlie said when she prayed, it was as if someone was standing right next to me, telling me, just trust in me. I am right here. Everything will be okay.
Part of it was hard, but God met me in the middle of it. And I think I began to get an idea of what it's like to have a Father who loves you, and you don't have to be anybody special.
For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to bless you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. The final key is God is your hope, and He has plans for you.
I had no idea that God had the compassionate arms that I could run to, that I could snuggle up in the bosom of God and be secure and be safe. And so to me, God is still a powerful God, but God is a God that loves me and that will always be there for me. When nobody else was there for me, I know that He's there. And one thing Penny told me, Penny said, when you're getting ready to go in for your CAT scans and you're real scared, she said, put your right hand out. And I said, why? And she said, because God's going to grab it.
He will give you the strength that's necessary to get through each day. For so long, I had a burden of dying. And when she explained the promises that heaven possessed, it removed that burden from me. I no longer was afraid to die.
Someday, there will be no more tears. There will be no more sorrow. There will be no more pain. I will be in a place where I will live with Him for an eternity without any of this stuff I'm going through here.
I'm probably going to die from cancer. It's a very hard thing to say. You know, I'm getting better at it. I still sometimes choke up in discussing that issue. But I think I'm getting better at it because the peace of the Lord is coming over to you.
Pain and suffering is inevitable, but misery is optional. And we make that choice. And more than 25 years ago, I chose God.
Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that you may abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And you need that hope, because when you don't have any hope from the doctors and you don't have any hope from anywhere else, the only place you can have hope is in the God of hope.
That's the only hope that I have to offer. I would love to be able to say that you as a cancer patient are going to survive and you're going to overcome your cancer. But I can't tell you that. There are statistics that may be able to show you that you can live another 5 years, another 10 years, or for that matter, you could live on for another 35 years of life. But there are no guarantees when it comes to what we face here on this earth. There is one guarantee, though. For those of us who know Jesus, we'll be in heaven with God forever.
Maybe hope is no bigger than a seed, moistened by tears, tended by suffering hands, warmed by the breath of God.
I said, you know, God, I don't understand all this stuff. But in Jesus, I ask you now, come into my heart and live. You've been knocking on the door for a long time. I've been afraid to admit it. I just open the door now, and I invite you into my heart. And know from this point forward, I'm going to do my best to live a life that honors you.
Take hope, the hope that God offers.
It's very important for us to be careful how we use the word miracle. There's not only a miracle in restoring life, or someone being healed from cancer, or healed from being a quadriplegic, but I think there's the miracle as it relates to the one who remains a quadriplegic, or becomes an amputee as a result of cancer, or even dies. Because ultimately the greatest miracle in the universe is the miracle of salvation. And it's that miracle based on what Jesus did on the cross for us that is the greatest miracle of all. And the challenge is for people to recognize that truth. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid if you're in a place where you're confused to go to somebody you know. Don't be afraid to pick up a Bible and start reading it. God says, if you seek me, you will find me. There's a reason why he says that. Knock and the door will be opened. If we're asking the right questions, and if we're in a place where we are confused and we're asking these questions, don't be afraid to look to God to find the answers.
Why do bad things happen to good people? What is the reason for suffering? Is there a purpose for pain? Take home a copy of Journey of Hope on DVD. Journey of Hope provides you with the hope you need to overcome fear, pain, loneliness, doubt, and despair. With a hope that is real, a hope you can build your life on. Give the gift of hope. Call 800-964-0439 or log on to explorationfilms.com.